All right, Cleveland Moto viewers, we've got a treat for you today. A motorcycle, again, maybe you don't know about it, maybe you've never paid attention to it. We're going to tell you why you should pay attention to it, why you should learn about it, and why maybe you ought to think about adding one to your stable of motorcycles like I did. This is the Kawasaki Versys. And before you dismiss this bike as being tries to do everything, is really good at nothing kind of motorcycle, that's not the way to look at it. I had never ridden one of these until I borrowed one from a friend of mine in Santa Cruz and rode it to San Francisco and rode it around in a really aggressive motorcycle ride through downtown San Francisco. And it was in that extremely aggressive riding in downtown San Francisco where people were on the sidewalk and it was not for the entry-level riders that I discovered how magical this motorcycle was. And it was a very short while after that ride that I made my business to find one and put one in my collection. You'll see we've got a KLR 650 sitting over here, and this has been my stalwart. This has been my go-to for many, many years. I've owned 6 or 7 KLR 650s, and I love them. And I think they're good at just about everything. But when you're trying to ride a KLR 650 on the freeway, you get up to 75 or 80 miles per hour, that 21-inch front wheel starts doing this on you. And it does, I don't care what forums you read, it's very hard to make the effect of a very large off-road wheel go away. That oscillation that you're going to get is just going to be there because you shouldn't try to ride a dirt bike on the freeway at 80 miles per hour for 5 or 6 states. That's really not what it's built for. It is a single, it's a 650cc single. And as much as the KLR 650 does the freeway thing and the off-road thing kind of okay, it really doesn't do either one of them particularly great, and that works for me because I don't go off-road very much. And I don't ask a lot of high-speed touring of that motorcycle. When I met my first Kawasaki Versys 650, things changed. I discovered a bike that I could ride from Santa Cruz to San Francisco at over 90 miles per hour, and the bike had no complaints about it. It was happy to run along at 7,000 RPM and just didn't seem to bother. It gave me about 55 miles per gallon, despite the fact I was wringing its neck. A 6-speed transmission. It has all the things that you'd look for in a freeway touring vehicle or a freeway light touring vehicle, and it does it all really, really well. The problem was people immediately started calling it an adventure bike, and I don't think it's an adventure bike. I don't think you should call it an adventure bike at all. And people started comparing it to a V-Strom 650, which definitely, larger front wheel, 21-inch front wheel. This has a 17. There's a lot of things about a V-Strom 650 that do make it an adventure bike. And when you compare these things on tarmac, on pavement, well, I'm not the only person. Motorcyclist Magazine thought that this Versys 650 performed better on pavement than the V-Strom did. They definitely awarded the title to this bike. Now, when you get them off-road, I'm never going to try to tell you that a 17-inch front wheel is going to work great off-road, because it's probably not. Going to a 19 or a 21 is always going to help you when you're bouncing along and trying to overcome obstacles. When you're trying to get across that log in your path or a radical terrain change, the larger the front wheel is going to help you. That's why dirt bikes have 21-inch front wheels. The Kawasaki KLR 650. It's that 21-inch front wheel, though, that can get you into trouble at freeway speeds. You don't need all that gyroscopic motion. So a little bit about this bike in particular. The first thing that's interesting is it's 650 cc's and it's a parallel twin. And it does like to rev. And the fun thing about it, though, is it does have an offset firing order, which gives it a very thumpy kind of feel. Its power delivery is very good. It's got a nice grunt down low. This platform, this motor, is not a motor that's just built for this bike. For years, this has been in the 650 Ninja. For years, this motor's been in the ER6 Ninja. ER6N is a really cool bike. And this is a different setup. This is taller. This is more upright. This is more comfortable. If you're 49 years old and your back doesn't want to be in a forward-leaning riding position, this bike is really happy. It's upright. You can see over things. And more importantly, there's no stress when you're riding this bike at freeway speeds. That's really cool. The 68 horsepower, that's kind of cool. 47 foot-pounds of torque, also neat. So these numbers are like pretty interesting when you get into the fact that this thing, when it's full of gas, only weighs 454 pounds. Think about that, 454 pounds curb weight, ready to go, ready to ride. That's very lightweight. It holds 5.5 gallons. So you're going to get over 250 miles to a tank of gas on this bike, and that's nice to have around. If you want to upgrade the bike, if you want to add things to it, well, you could be lazy and just buy the LT package. The LT package comes from Kawasaki with the handguards. It comes with the rear matching saddlebags and the rear matching top case. And you've got over 100 liters of storage right there for you. And it's not uncommon to see these bikes in the market for around $7,000. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck in a 6-speed transmission motorcycle. That's pretty cool too. About that off-road thing, still has 6 inches of travel, 6 inches of wheel travel to front and the back. That's a very big amount of wheel travel. That's pretty cool. And as much as I'm telling you that this bike is probably not great for off-road living, with 6 inches of wheel travel, you might be able to go out and get a little dirty every now and then. Maybe with that 17-inch wheels options, where you do have every kind of tire known to man at 17 inches, maybe you could do a dual sport tire, and maybe you could occasionally get the bike dirty, or maybe you just set it up in a manner that has kind of an off-road look, but you only get it dirty every once in a while. Pretty cool though, to give a bike like this 6 inches of wheel travel. About that suspension, you don't like the way it is at the moment, maybe you want to go do some twisties, it's okay, just reach back here and twist this knob. So from the rider's position, you can just reach back, twist the knob, crank up the back suspension, stiffen it right there. Same with the front forks. The front forks are totally adjustable. If you have something like a very strong thumbnail or a dime in your pocket, you can use that to adjust the front suspension. That's pretty cool on a bike that's factory stock. It has the lever adjusters stock. So this bike really does come from the factory with a lot of really cool features. It got the cosmetic update in 2015. So 2014, you may recognize that the older Versys had that Punisher-looking headlight that looked kind of like a skull. It had a headlight on top of a headlight. And for the 2015 model year, they decided to make the motorcycle look more like a tall Ninja. They gave it the side-by-side headlight treatment, and that does update the look of the bike. I still kind of like the look of the old Versys because the 2014 and earlier, because at a distance, the bike is very identifiable as a Versys. With this newer headlight package, from a distance, you may think it's a Ninja because it does share a very common look with the Ninja sport bike. The windshield is adjustable from the factory, so this has got about 3 inches of adjustment. And this is the factory windshield, which only is about 14 inches wide and about 16 inches tall, yet it gives you a really remarkable amount of wind coverage when you're going down the road. I've taken one of these bikes and I've done the full LT conversion to it. I've added the rear boxes, I've added a tall, big top case for the back. I've got the handguards on the front, and I put heated grips on it. And I can tell you that as a day-to-day motorcycle, a commuter that you're not afraid to put long distances on, it might be perfect. And it has no problem exceeding 100 miles per hour. It has no problem getting first, second, and maybe a tiny bit of third gear with the front wheel in the air. So the engineering of the motor, the power delivery, it's spot on. Now, about the elephant in the room. They do make a V-Strom 1000 and they do make a Versys 1000. And we've had the Versys 1000 here, and it's a very big motorcycle. It is not fair to say it's just a bigger brother of this. To me, the Versys 1000 felt like a concourse on stilts. It has that same concourse motor. Everything about it is just like a concourse, but they've given it a more upright riding position than the traditional concourse, and they put all the engine guards on it to make it look like it's an off-road vehicle, to make it look like it's an adventure bike. Really, it's a light touring bike. It's an LT, not an adventure bike. That concourse one, or that Versys 1000, I would never even consider putting it in the dirt. And as much as I would say, yeah, I wouldn't have so many reservations about taking this off-road a little bit or riding it around because of that light weight, that 450-pound weight, and that 6 inches of wheel travel, might make for actually a very capable bike to get back to your campsite. Whereas that Versys 1000, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable taking that thing in wet grass. It's a very heavy machine, and there's just a certain width to it. And it really is a freeway mile eater. That thing's a high-speed touring vehicle, whereas I think when we get into the parallel twin and the 650s, it's more of a versatile machine. And I think the name was really good on it, the versatile system. I mean, the name Versys is great. I know when it first came out, a lot of people had problems with the name. They didn't make sense to them. It does make sense when you think about it. This bike is very capable. It does a lot of things. It works very well in my stable. We happen to have 3 of these for sale right now at our shop. So we have this, which is a 2015 with about 1,400 miles on it. You can own the bike for about $6,800. This thing is as new. We can't find a scratch or a blemish on the bike. We have a 2014 with even less miles, maybe 700 or 800 miles on it, if you like that earlier body style, that earlier look. And then of course we got the bike I was telling you about earlier, which is my bike, which is the full LT package. It has everything on it, including the heated grips, a couple of power outlets. Neat thing about the Versys is right here in the console, they've given you 2 places that you can put 12-volt outlets. The bike is just real easy to modify, really easy to upgrade. You want to change the windshield, you don't have to unbolt anything. You just undo the 2 thumb screws on the front, take the windshield off, put on whatever taller, bigger windshield that you like. So that's a little bit about the Kawasaki Versys 650. Again, I'm not going to go into massive amounts of stats or gear ratios or anything else. This is mostly just letting you know about a bike that maybe you hadn't paid attention to before, something that we've discovered kind of by having a shop and being able to play with a lot of different bikes. If you're interested in this bike, you can find out more about it. We have it listed on our website at www.clevelandmoto.com. If you want to buy the bike or you want more information right away, just call us. Our number is 216-795-5580. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have about the bike, and please remember to ride fast and take chances.